You clicked on this, so you probably know a lot about RM, the leader of BTS, or know me, in which case, hi. Anyway, RM is known to be responsible, reflecting for his controversial lyrics since the beginning of his career, and advocating for mental health. But as his curation exhibit with the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art approaches, here's what I've been thinking about lately. The art he collects, the stuff he actually spends his own money on and puts in his home, brings into his life, tells us just how important equality and activism are to him. Because collecting art isn't passive, you're deciding, I want to live with this, and in his case, paying big bucks for it. And when you look at the artists RM has chosen, Roni Horn, Agnes Martin, Phillip Guston, Han Youngsoo, Chang Ucchin, a very specific set of values starts to emerge. So we're gonna go artist by artist through the parts of his collection he's showing at the MOMA, dig into what these works actually mean, and talk about what RM's choices reveal about who he is, because honestly, it's a lot. Let's start with Roni Horn, because she might be my personal favorite and the most philosophically loaded choice in the whole collection. Horn is an American visual artist born in 1955. She's known for her cast glass sculptures, photography, and works on paper. RM owns her piece Untitled from 2013 to 2017. Now, what's Horn's work actually about? Her entire practice is built around the idea of resisting fixed identity. Her cast glass sculptures, these gorgeous, heavy, polished objects, look completely different depending on the light, the weather, the time of day. As she puts it, an endless shifting in their appearance places them in an eternal state of mutability. This connects directly to Horn's own identity. She's spoken about how, since she was young, she decided her gender was nobody's business. She's openly gay and questions identity, how we construct it, how we perform it, how it shifts, run through everything she makes. Her drawing series, The Hackwit Works, takes idioms and proverbs and scrambles them into nonsense. Language, she's arguing, is more unstable than we think. Meaning isn't fixed, identity isn't fixed, and her photography, including the selected gifts, which spans from 1974 to 2015, presents collected objects as vicarious self-portraits, where the self is understood through what surrounds it rather than through any fixed essence. So why does this matter for RM? Collecting Horn is in a sense a philosophical statement. Identity is fluid, and that's not a problem to be solved, it's a condition of being human. Next up, Agnes Martin and her 1963 painting Falling Blue. Disclaimer, I think this one is a part of the MOMA's collection that RM chose to have exhibited. Martin's one of the defining figures of American minimalism. She painted subtle meditative grids and horizontal lines, works that look almost blank at first glance, but reveal emotional depth on closer inspection. Falling Blue is that, quiet, almost transcendent. It was made the year she was preparing to leave New York, before she'd leave for the New Mexico desert for years of near solitary life. And here's where it gets interesting. Martin's relationship to identity was complicated in ways that mirror some of the tensions in Horn's work. She spent her life in the Quincy Slip in Lower Manhattan, which in the 1960s was both an artistic hub and a haven for the queer community. She's believed to have had romantic relationships with other women, including the gallerist Betty Parsons and likely the artist Lenore Tawney, though she never publicly spoke about her sexuality, and historians have described her as a closeted homosexual. But Martin's complexity doesn't stop there. She's been claimed by feminist art history, but she herself rejected the label. She once told a New Yorker journalist she thought the women's movement had failed. Art historian Jali Mansouri described her as too engaged in a feminist relation of practice, perhaps to objectify and label it as such. So here's an artist whose work and life embody feminist and queer sensibilities, but who refused to be conscripted into anyone's political project. What does this mean for RM to choose a Martin? I think it signals an appreciation for interiority, an art that doesn't demand anything from you, but it also signals an interest in figures who exist outside easy categorization, are too complex, too private, to themselves to be flattened into a talking point. Okay, Phillip Guston. This is one of the more obvious ones to me. RM owns Guston's Untitled Red and Black book from 1969. Guston was born Philip Goldstein in 1913, the son of Jewish immigrants. He rose to prominence in the 1950s as a celebrated abstract expressionist, technically brilliant, critically respected, and then at the height of his success, he walked away from abstraction entirely. By the late 1960s, amid the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, and the assassination of MLK, Guston called American abstract painting a lie and a sham. He started making cartoonish paintings of hooded Klansmen, of boots, of clocks, of cigarettes, everyday objects rendered in a deliberately crude style. He was crucified by the art world for it. His 1970 show at Marlborough Gallery, where these new works debuted, was savaged by critics who felt betrayed. But here's what Guston said about the hooded figures. He said, "They are self-portraits. I perceive myself as being behind the hood. The idea of evil fascinated me. I almost tried to imagine that I was living with the Klan. This wasn't spectacle, it was a moral reckoning." He was asking, how does complicity work? How do ordinary people participate in evil? And what does it mean to be a white artist comfortable in the art world while the country burns? The books in Guston's works, and RM's piece is specifically a book painting, carried their own weight. He said he painted almost 100 paintings of books because it was such a simple object. It's what's around you. But books also represent thought, conscience, the record of human knowledge. In the context of 1969, a book, red and black, those loaded colors, is a question. Are you paying attention? RM choosing to collect Guston is a statement. It's an endorsement of an artist who chose discomfort over prestige, who is willing to lose everything to say something true. Now we shift to Korean artists. Han Youngsoo was a South Korean photographer who documented Seoul from around 1956 to 1963, right in the aftermath of the Korean War. RM owns his Dokseung Palace, Jeongdong, Seoul. Han's photography is remarkable for what he chose to focus on. Ordinary people, especially women, navigating a city in the middle of massive reconstruction. He was a street photographer in the truest sense. He didn't stage anything to interfere, nor did he belittle his subjects. He just captured what he saw in the city, and what he saw was women. Women strolling along the palace walls, women carrying children and goods to the market, women at work and at leisure. He documented their confidence, their individuality, their presence at a time when life seemed decimated by war, and the people were quite literally rebuilding the country. As one description of his work puts it, women stroll along the picturesque stone-walled walkway of Doksu Palace on a rainy day, carry simultaneously their children and loads of goods to the street market. Han himself said of this period, all things were in a recovery phase. One could discover forgotten hopes and laugh, and faith in humanity once lost was gradually restored. There's something profound about that framing, photography as the restoration of faith in people. For RM, a Korean artist collecting another artist who centered women's lives and resilience in a moment of national trauma, is a statement about memory, about who gets to be seen, and about the dignity of ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. Finally, Chang Ucchin, in his 1988 work, The River Scene, which RM owns. Chang Ucchin is one of the most recognizable modernist Korean painters. Born in 1917, he painted in a style that is instantly recognizable. Simple, almost childlike figures, children playing, animals, the sun and moon, nature. But there's more going on than naivety. Chang was a philosophical painter shaped by Buddhism. He moved to the small riverside village of Doksu in 1963 to live alone and paint, choosing simplicity over the career advancement that came with staying in Seoul. He chose simple lines as a way of getting at the essence of things rather than their surface. His children are always free, always playful, always uninhibited. That comes from his genuine inquiry into the innate and essential human nature and identity, and his quest for true freedom and harmony with nature. The River Scene from 1988 is a late period Ucchin. The brushstrokes are stronger, the shapes more geometric, but the spirit is unchanged. RM owning an Ucchin feels personal. Here is an artist who walked away from prestige, chose slowness, chose nature, chose children's eyes over adult cynicism. There's something intentional about bringing that into your home. So what does that all add up to? Roni Horn says the self is fluid, identity resists capture, and that's something to celebrate, not fix. Agnes Martin says interiority matters, quietness is valid, and complexity can't be conscripted. Phillip Guston says that comfort in the face of injustice is its own form of complicity, and art owes the world something more than decoration. Han Youngsoo explains that the people history overlooks, women survivors, the ordinary, are worth looking at carefully, and Chang Ucchin says that simplicity, nature, and spiritual freedom are worth more than prestige. Taken together, this isn't a random collection. RM has been drawn again and again to artists who were willing to be uncomfortable, who thought seriously about identity and justice, who chose death over spectacle, and who never stopped asking what it means to be human. And I think that tells us a lot about who he is. I hope we all get a chance to go see the exhibit in San Francisco and that RM partners with other museums across the world. Okay, let me know what you think. Bye bye!